The Europa League finalists of Manchester United in 16th and Tottenham Hotspur in 17th. Ahead of the Europa League tomorrow, here are the managers. Ange taking issue at being called a clown, and Amorim discussing why he's under pressure.
Ange Postecoglou has just been in here answering questions about whether he might still be in his job, whatever the result tomorrow. Are you sort of surprised, grateful that you don't seem to be under the same kind of pressure, despite the fact that your team has a similar record to Spurs?
Who told you he's not? He is.
He wants my job. He'll be a very, very good coach. But he has to work on it in his mindset. He doesn't know how to deal with people. No. I don't know. I know that in this kind of club, also in Tottenham, but especially Manchester United, is strange because you have some coaches that loses some games and they are sacked. It's hard to explain. I think people see what we are trying to do. I think people see that sometimes I'm thinking more in the club than in myself. People understand, especially the board, understand that we had a lot of issues that in the context is really hard. So I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain how the fans like me in this moment. So it's hard to explain. I will try to prove myself to the fans, to the board, but I don't have an explanation for you.
If you win tomorrow night, this is going to be remembered as one of the best seasons in the club's modern history. But kind of conversely, if you lose, it might be remembered for one of the worst league seasons in the club's modern history. I just wondered if you're kind of conscious that you're walking a fine line between kind of two very different types of infamy in history, really.
That depends on your outlook, Dan, but I'll tell you one thing, irrespective of tomorrow, I'm not a clown. I never will be, mate. And you're really disappointed that you would use such terminology about a person who, for 26 years, without any favours from anyone, who's worked his way to be in a position where he's leading out a club in a European major competition, for you to suggest that somehow us not being successful means that I'm a clown, not really sure how to answer that question.
There'd been a report that had said that Ange Postecoglou was teetering between a hero and a clown, which is a bit of context behind why he said what he said there in the pre-match press conference. I don't think anybody wants to be called a clown, Shaka.
No. And listen, I totally understand why Ange Postecoglou took umbrage with what was said, or certainly how it was written, especially ahead of a Europa League final and what that brings, what winning it brings to the football club. And Ange is right. Kind of give them your dedication to the game. No one wants. One game shouldn't define that person's commitment to the game of football. So I totally understand. I totally understand his reaction. But then I can't help but compare kind of the mood around both press conferences. Let's be honest. If Manchester United lose and Spurs win, Amorim is not going to be out of a job. Amorim is going to be Manchester United manager come August. I feel fairly confident in saying that. But at the same time, I'm not sure that sticking with Ange Postecoglou, if Spurs do win, is the right thing to do. So there's a huge difference in the pressure that both managers are under, despite what Bruno Fernandes may want to say or have us believe. And also just kind of the more buoyant mood around Manchester United. You just wonder if they come into this kind of recognizing that and in better shape, certainly psychologically. On the other, you just wonder if Spurs, despite their record against Manchester United this season, are leaning into that underdog mentality, that siege mentality that so many managers have used to very good effect. So it's really delicately poised, and I want to see how both these teams approach it, because both can be used to your benefit. Ultimately, though, somebody's season hinges on the next 90 or 120 minutes of football. You cannot get away that this game is all defining for both clubs.
It's interesting to get a journalist's perspective as well on this, Mark, because this is obviously Ange Postecoglou being briefed, or at least knowing what's being written about him and bringing it up to a wider audience in a press conference here.
Yeah, so I I read the column that it was in the London Evening Standard. So obviously it's the local paper. It's the London paper, which they have a delegated Tottenham reporter. It was their correspondent who wrote that Ange would be a hero or a clown. From my perspective, it was the wrong word. It was a clumsy use of language. It's probably hero or villain, or I mean, even that's not the right one. But the point is that he's not a clown. Ange can be a kind of a divisive kind of character. He does moan quite a lot. He pretends that he's not hurt, but he seems to talk about it quite a lot. But still, he's not a clown. He's successful at Celtic. He's managed the Australian national team. He's managing a Premier League team. He's got to European final. You can't call him a clown. So, but you're right. All the managers say they don't read the papers, or they do, and they either read them themselves, or they go online, or they get their media department to give them clippings as to what has been said. So you can either blank out the noise and ignore it, or you can use it as Ange does. So I've never been quite able to work out what Ange's motivation is, whether he uses it as fuel, or whether he really is as kind of thick-skinned as he says he is, or he's actually quite thin-skinned, and he pretends that he's thick-skinned by saying he's thick-skinned when he's actually thin-skinned. But who knows? I mean, he's lost a lot of friends, I think. Certainly at Tottenham, the fans were all over him at the start. They loved him, and he's kind of burnt a lot of bridges there. The players, not particularly having him either. So he's got himself into this situation, and a lot of it's his own fault, because he's picked the teams, he's picked the tactics. He's got his team 17th in the Premier League. They haven't even got 40 points yet. So I think he's run out of excuses, really. But ultimately, yes, he's not a clown. That's unfair.
However, Shaka brought it up, Frank. Spurs have beaten Manchester United 3 times this season, twice in the league and then in the Carabao Cup quarter-final as well. Does it matter?
Of course it does. Of course it does. It should bring confidence to Spurs. If they are looking for something special, and it can scare a little bit the Man United players, because they have played 3 times against a team who finished 17th in the league, and they have lost 3 times. So that can be the X factor, I would say, in their mind. So it's important for both clubs, for both teams, for every players, and yes, it will matter.
It will matter, and Shaka brought this one up as well, Mark. How much does United's future hinge on the result of this game?
Well, financially, it's a massive game. It's like a snakes and ladders game, this, because if United win, they get back in the Champions League. It is worth at least £100 million to the club over the next 12 months in terms of competition money being in the Champions League, and also gate receipts in terms of how much. Old Trafford generates £5 million a game. You've got at least 8 games of the Champions League, so that's £40 million. So financially, it's massive. I've been told that the 2 targets they're looking at right now are Liam Delap and Mateus Cunha. They can do those deals without having to be in the Champions League, so they're already budgeted for. But if they're suddenly looking at an extra uplift of £100 million finances next year, they can sign more players. They can move players that they don't want a little bit easily because the financial headroom is better. But also, look at the flip side. If Man United don't win anything, they're not in Europe next season. They could finish 17th in the league. It's chalk and cheese, isn't it, from where they are and where they should be. So it's a massive, massive moment for Man United. But equally, you can't diminish how important it is to Tottenham. The financial side of it isn't quite as big for Spurs, but what is massive for Tottenham, they haven't won a trophy since 2008, and it's almost like a curse hanging over the club now. The fans are so paranoid and neurotic about it that if Spurs don't win a trophy, it carries on and on. So for winning the game tomorrow, it's massive. It's Champions League, it's prestige. For losing the game, wow, you don't know the team that loses tomorrow, because you can imagine how dark that trip back to England will be without winning that game.
Well, let's find out who everybody thinks is going to lose or win tomorrow. These are the predictions from the panel as to how it's going to go. 3 going for Manchester United: Shaka Hislop, Steve Nicol and Dan Thomas. The rest of us going for Spurs, including you, Mark Ogden.
Yeah, well, the reason is, you mentioned before that Spurs have beaten United 3 times this season, but United haven't lost a game in Europe. But the reason why United have done well in Europe is because the European game it suits them, that their players, the likes of Casemiro and Maguire, who aren't as quick as they should be, do better in Europe because they've got more time. It's a less physical game. They're up against a Tottenham team who are a very physical team, and United have beaten just 2 Premier League teams since the end of January, and they were Leicester and Ipswich. So against Premier League teams, United aren't very good. And they're playing a Premier League team tomorrow night. It's not a European game, it's a Premier League game. So for me, United's domestic form will come into this, and I think that physically Tottenham will have the number on United. So that's why I'm going for a Tottenham win.
Why is he wrong, Shaka?
I just feel, and as I mentioned, there's a lot of pressure in this game for both managers, for both football clubs. I think there's a whole lot more on Spurs. And ultimately, it's who handles that pressure better. Given, as I say, given how much more pressure Spurs are under, I'm not sure that they have the squad, they have the experience to cope with that pressure. So I lean Manchester United just.
Okay. Well, make sure to join the boys tomorrow to find out how it all does play out. Frank, go on, Frank.
Yeah, do you want to know, because that's a very important fact. You know why I picked Spurs? For no reason, in fact. It's only that I have 2 friends are Spurs fans and only 1 friend is Man United fans. That's the only reason why I picked Spurs.
So he's gone for 2-1.
Because I have no point to explain. Yeah, exactly. It's why I think I put 3-2, but I don't have an explanation why a team should win against another one. So that's my only point.
Which is why I didn't come to you, Frank. Thanks for all that research.
Thank you very much.
The good news is Frank will be back tomorrow to talk to you more about who does win and why they did, and hopefully he'll have a better explanation. He'll be with Craig.
Keep it just like that.